All right, all right. I am Peter Alessandria, and for the next 90 minutes, I invite you to be bigger than you think you are. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Let's take a look at our agenda for this evening. So we're going to have some announcements as usual. I have a recommended reading for you tonight. It's actually a twofer on the recommended reading. We have our affirmation of the day. Then we're going to do some introductions and/or for anybody who's new, or sharing victories. So if you have anything that you've accomplished in this past week that you want to share with us, you'll have an opportunity to do that. We're going to listen to an excerpt from my audiobook, Chapter 4, tonight. We're starting at page 106, if you have your copy handy. We'll have our topic discussion, then we'll take our break at about 8:45 or so, then we'll come back and do our assignment and questions and answers until 9:30, and then we'll wrap it up there. All right, so our first announcement, as usual, I have a discount code for you guys. If you don't currently have a copy of the book, this is for the author-signed paperback. Use the code BOOK20 at checkout at bebiggertoday.com/book. And if you do purchase the book, just put a little note as to who you'd like me to sign the book to. So again, it's BOOK20 for 20% off at bebiggertoday.com/book. I'm also promoting my book, New York Cityscapes. This is the definitive New York City photo book. This is a collaboration between myself and 6 other New York City area photographers. So I have copies here for you guys. If you're interested, they make great, it's the perfect gift for the New York City lover in your family, your friends, clients, whatever. These are all some of my original photos. And the cool thing about this book, as I said, it's a collaboration between myself and 6 other New York City photographers. And we all have our own take on those well-known New York City landmarks. So you'll get 7 different photographers' view of New York City, the skyline, and all of that. So it's on sale, $16.95, bebiggertoday.com/bookstore. You'll see New York Cityscapes there. I am still working on the audiobook for Be Bigger Than You Think You Are. I'm currently offering it for $9.99 for pre-orders. That's almost half off the regular price. It's looking now, it's going to be closer to 10 hours. It's unabridged. And on both the audiobook and the paperback book, if you don't love them, just let me know and you will get your money back. Although I know you're going to love them. So you can get that at bebiggertoday.com/bookstore. And we have merch, hats and t-shirts, great stocking stuffers for the holidays. Get 20% off by using the discount code MERCH20 at checkout at bebiggertoday.com/merch. And then I also want to mention my original art and photography. So I do have a section on my website where I have an opportunity for people to order prints, actual prints of my work. These are gallery wrapped, professionally framed, signed, gallery wrapped canvas prints. So you can get these at bebiggertoday.com/art-photography. And I'm going to play a little commercial. It's 30 seconds, bear with me. Peter's photos and abstract designs are uniquely beautiful, one-of-a-kind works of art. These gallery-wrapped canvas prints are set in a contemporary shadow box floating frame and will enhance the beauty of any home or office. Available in 4 different sizes, each piece is professionally framed and comes complete and ready to hang. Frames are available in your choice of black, white, or brown, and each is signed by the artist. Peter's original art and photography will make a great gift for a client, for yourself, or someone you love. Order yours today. All right, that's my commercial. And finally, I have refrigerator magnets. Now, there is a story, as some of you guys already know, there is a story behind these refrigerator magnets that comes up in Chapter 7 when we talk about forgiveness. So I just want to show you, I happen to have some here. There's a whole story behind how I got into the souvenir business. So I don't know if you can see this, but these are dope, as my 14-year-old niece would say. Come on, focus. There it is. All right, so check them out. They have some, these are all my original photos, by the way. And they're the perfect stocking stuffer. So you can get these at bebiggertoday.com/merch, Statue of Liberty. And if you get them now through the end of the year, you will get a free set of colored pencils that also have my original photos on there. Colored pencils. All right. I know.
With the sharpener.
Right, with the sharpener built in. Okay, and finally, again, I am available for one-on-one coaching if you're an artist, if you're a photographer, if you're a writer, creative person, or maybe you're not creative, but you just want to move forward, you're stuck in a certain area of your life. Reach out to me through the website for some one-on-one coaching, and or if you have a business or work at a company and you'd like me to speak to your management team, your sales team, and help them be bigger than they think they are, then just reach out to me through the website and we will set that up. All right, that's it for the commercial advertising portion of our workshop. So tonight's recommended reading. Now, some of you who are familiar with 12-Step, you're already familiar with these books, but I'm going to mention them anyway because even if you're not currently in recovery or you don't participate in a 12-Step program, it's my experience and my opinion that these books are helpful for anybody, especially the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, who wants to make some changes in their life. And, this is tried and true. This book is actually used in many different 12-step programs, not just AA, because of the light that it sheds on the process of compulsive disease, compulsive behavior, and how to overcome that, as well as building a relationship, a foundation for a relationship with a higher power. All right, so the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it's currently in its 4th edition. You can get it on the AA website, but you can also, you can download it there as a PDF. You can download it as an ebook. You can purchase a hard copy if you want. You can purchase from most major bookstores if those still exist. You can get it online at Amazon and so on. So the Alcoholics Anonymous big book, again, I think it's so helpful. So whether you're in recovery or not, if you resonate with what I'm saying in any way, check it out. You can actually read it for free on the AA website. And then the other book is the 12 and 12. This is the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. This is a little more specific if you are working a recovery program and you're working the steps. But this is also very helpful, and in my opinion goes way beyond just working the 12 steps in a 12-step program. So I offer both of these to you. Again, they're both available for free on the AA website and probably other places as well. Very helpful for me in my recovery in 3 different programs, and I think just helpful in our life in general. So if you're so moved, check it out. Our affirmation for the day: things are always working out for me. Now, if you're like me, you probably walk around most of the day saying, God darn it, nothing ever goes my way, another problem, this stinks, what am I going to do now? Nothing goes my way. So what we want to do is we want to reprogram that. And it's important to notice that we're affirming something all the time. If you're conscious and you're awake and you're thinking, chances are pretty good that you're talking to yourself, unless you're actually talking to somebody else. And if you're talking to yourself, you're either going to be positively affirming something or negatively affirming something. So this is an opportunity to begin to reprogram all that negative stuff that we tell ourselves all day long, because whether or not you think you believe in affirmations, I'll speak for myself. Whether or not I think I believe in affirmations, I'm affirming all day long, whether I know it or not. So I may as well put something positive in there. I may as well put something that's going to move me forward instead of reinforce this idea that I'm powerless, I'm helpless, my life sucks, nothing ever goes my way, nothing ever works out for me. And again, we want our affirmations to be believable, and this could be, you could tweak it a little bit, but the idea is to come up with an affirmation that's positive and that's believable, and then say that to yourself all day long and see how your life changes. Okay, so we're going to open it up now for introductions. If there's anybody who's new attending the workshop for the first time, this is an opportunity, if you want to, you don't have to introduce yourself. or if you have a victory, if you've been here before, but you have a victory you want to share from the last week or so, this is your chance as well. So you can unmute and say hello.
Hi, I was here for half the session last week. I'm back this week. My name is Laura Rothman. I am in Central New Jersey, where I live and work.
Awesome. Welcome, Laura. Did you get a copy of the book?
I did. I do. One of your devoted people actually sent it to me as a surprise.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I know that devoted person. She is very devoted.
She's really great.
Awesome. I'm so glad you're here, Laura. Welcome.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to say hi?
I'll say something. I'm Kim.
Hey, Kim.
Hi, Peter. I'm really enjoying the book. I had a victory I had an awareness. My cousin called and said that her husband left a message on my phone saying her husband was very sick. And my interpretation of the way she sounded was really like, oh my God, she's stressed out. It's terrible. She doesn't even want anybody to call. It was very intense. So I procrastinated for a couple of days, and then I started feeling worse and worse. Should I send her a card? Should I call her? Finally, I just said, that's ridiculous. Let me just call her. It's my cousin. But I listened to her message one time before I called. Her voice was not so stressed out. And I realized about myself, I mean, she was concerned, but it wasn't what I had heard the first time around. And I realized, wow, I am so wound tight and looking for a problem all the time that I didn't even hear her correctly. And so I called her, and it was a great conversation, but it was just a moment where I was aware of how I have a tendency to think like disaster thinking. So it was a good thing to see in myself. That's it. Thank you.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, I totally relate to that, number one. Number two, I have an experience where I talk about it later in this chapter, I think it's chapter 4, where I talk about defensiveness and how I misinterpreted phone calls, emails from clients because I have I have this proclivity for this defensive attitude where I feel like people or it's not the same situation as yours, other than misinterpreting or projecting onto the situation something that's not there. So it's beautiful because this is all about, it starts with awareness, starts with being conscious of what are we thinking and then questioning that. Is that really true? Is that serving me? Is that going to move me forward? Great. Beautiful, Kim. Thank you. Anybody else want to say hi or share a victory? So let's jump in. So we're on chapter 4, as you guys know. The title of the chapter is From FEAR to LOVE. We're going to be in this chapter for a few more weeks. I got a lot to say about this, but the thing that I want to just bring to your attention right now, and I'll come back to this again in a minute, is it's a transition. We're doing our best to move from fear to love. And I'm going to talk about what gets in the way of that. So let's start with an excerpt from the audiobook. Again, if you're following along, if you have the book, we're starting on page 106. I believe it's 106. Yeah. And so we'll listen to this about 5 minutes long, and then we'll come back and we will begin our discussion. Oops. So hang on for that.
She loves me not. Speaking of real versus imagined threats, we've come to one of my favorites: insecurity in our romantic relationships. Looking at our ancestral past, I don't imagine Neanderthal man cared too much about what that cute, but probably really hairy cave woman thought about him. He was probably much more likely concerned with four-legged, but perhaps equally hairy, threats stalking him in his environment. For modern man, while we may have less body hair, we definitely have a lot more fear than our Neanderthal friends when it comes to our romantic relationships. Let's look at a hypothetical example. Suppose you've met Mr. Right, minimal body hair. The relationship appears to be going well, but deep down inside you have an uneasy feeling. Does he really love me? Will he stick around for a while? Then one day, out of the blue, your worst fears are realized. He cuts things off virtually with no explanation. Even worse, he does it by text message. Thoughts of rejection, unworthiness, anger, and self-pity fill your mind. In short order, your outlook goes from everything's great to life sucks. Now, if you're like 99.95% of the human population, you would probably assume that he was the cause of what you were feeling. Everything was great until he changed his mind. Now your life sucks, so it must be his fault. Yet because you're reading this book, you now know that the cause of your distress is not found in what he did or didn't do. You know that you took his behavior, passed it through your internal filter of who you think you are, and then came to a conclusion about you. It's to that conclusion you are now reacting. Despite being really, really upset, you're also a really good student. So you remember I said something back in chapter 2 about working backwards. You recall that this is a technique we can use to discover how we see ourselves in certain painful or difficult situations. You flip back to those pages, review what I said, and then ask yourself the following questions. How must I see myself to feel so much pain and anger about someone leaving me? Who must I think I am for his actions to hurt me so much? As you ponder those questions, your mind begins to open. Maybe these feelings are more about me than him. Maybe I'm reacting to something buried deep within the recesses of my own subconscious mind. Maybe I need to look at who I think I am rather than who I think he is. Feelings of sadness or grief naturally follow the loss of a relationship. Yet what may not be so normal and what we therefore want to be on the lookout for is when we're devastated, angry, vengeful, depressed, and so on. In those cases, chances are pretty good something else is going on. Such emotions transcend the normal feelings of sadness or grief that accompany the loss of something special. I would suggest that the true cause of our emotional pain, once we've accounted for the normal sadness of a relationship ending, is a result of our own negative beliefs about ourselves. The idea that we're unlovable, unworthy, not good enough, etc. This is the true source of our pain and is far more agonizing than someone simply leaving the relationship. Seeing ourselves as unlovable or unworthy is tantamount to abandoning or rejecting ourselves. Thus, I would submit it's our own self-abandonment or self-rejection that gives rise to the extreme feelings many of us experience when someone breaks up with us. This is true even if they lie to us or cheat on us or break up with us by text message. Again, we're not making excuses for someone else's unloving or inconsiderate behavior. People can be jerks or worse in relationships. Yet we're learning that if we want our lives to be different, our focus must be on ourselves. We have to look at how we can take responsibility for our feelings. We also know that we can't change another person's behavior. All this means, regardless of what they say or do, our feelings are about us. Footnote 20. Have you ever considered feeling compassion for a person who has to lie or cheat their way through life or relationships? Someone who has so little faith in themselves they have to deceive others to get what they want. How happy and secure could someone be who has to mislead people to get involved with them in the first place? I know what it's like to be that person from first-hand experience. It's not a happy existence. Back to the text. When deep feelings of anger, rage, emotional pain, and/or unworthiness follow a breakup, I'm going to suggest it's not because of how little the other person seems to think of us, it's because of how little we think of ourselves. This means that if we're insecure in any relationship, the source of our fear is not that we'll lose their love, it's that we'll lose our own. This is true because no one can really love us if we don't love ourselves. It's also true because no one can hurt us when we do. If all this is hard to believe, think about it this way. Was there ever a time you weren't upset about a relationship ending? What was different in that situation? Probably only one thing. You didn't see yourself as unlovable. You didn't take the other person's leaving as a sign of your own unworthiness. It's the exact same situation, but because of how you saw yourself, and by extension how you saw them, you gave the situation a different meaning. Instead of being devastated, you were nonplussed. You might have actually even been relieved to see them go.
All right, we are back. Did I mention we have colored pencils? Okay, so we are moving into one of my favorite subjects, which is our intimate romantic love relationships. Although I think this could be true of, I guess to a lesser extent, but any relationship that's founded in love, in intimacy, I guess the big example for me are romantic relationships. So we want to talk about what came up for me as I was writing this book, actually. First of all, I just want to give you a disclaimer. I am not the expert on romantic relationships. I speak from a place of disasters when it comes to my romantic life. So I'm not giving advice on romance or anything like that, but it did occur to me that there are some important things that's, based on the work that we've been doing that come up in the context of intimate relationships. It could also be friendships. My friendships were pretty damaged too in some ways. My work relationships. I mean, I had a lot of challenges in my relationships. And we're going to talk more in the next couple of weeks about, romantic, intimate relationships and the challenges that come up around that. But I put it in the subject of fear, because for me at least, and I think this is true for a lot of people, this is one of the places where fear comes up a lot in terms of getting involved with somebody, becoming intimate, committing to a relationship. So I want to show you the first slide we have here. And it occurred to me that before we can move from fear to love, we have to overcome our fear of love. Now, this is definitely take what you like and leave the rest. You may have a different experience, but I know for me, I was terrified of being in relationships. I was terrified of giving my heart to someone. I was challenged in so many ways about being intimate, about being honest, about being available, about being committed. And the fear for me was the fear of rejection, the fear of loss, the fear of shame, a lot of the things we've been talking about. But it seems like in a romantic relationship, the stakes get even higher. And, we talk about, being vulnerable when we're intimate, being, honest, revealing, letting somebody see all of us. And my thought always was, especially in my romantic life, once they get to know me, they're not going to want to stick around anymore. They're not going to like me. Because I had this self-image, which I've talked about for the last 3 months, that said I was unworthy, I was not good enough, I was unlovable. Remember, last week we talked about my two problems. The first problem is this perception of myself as powerless, meaning I can't take care of myself, I'm not going to be okay, I'm not going to get what I think I want or need in a relationship. And then the second problem is my perception of myself is unlovable. There was something about me I learned as a kid through my own misconceptions, my own misinterpretations of what was going on in my life, but I came to this conclusion as a 6-year-old or 8-year-old or 4-year-old, however old I was, that there was something about me that was not okay. I was not lovable. And so, of course, when I go to get involved with somebody, this is in the back of my mind. Well, they're going to find out, because I put on a good show. And especially, when I was younger and I was moving up the career ladder in Los Angeles in the entertainment industry, and I had it going on. And I put on a really good show. But underneath that, there was this frightened little kid who was just certain he was going to be rejected, who was just certain that they were going to find out that there was something wrong with him and they were going to leave me, And that fear, this is fear, was running my relationship life. And honestly, I wasn't even really aware that that's what was going on. Remember, these thoughts and beliefs that we have about ourselves become so deeply ingrained that we don't even question them. We think that's just the truth about me. That's just the way it is. That's just the way I am. And so we're not these negative thoughts and beliefs get pushed below the surface, but they're still running our life. They were for me at least. And so that point of view, that concept of myself, led to some really crazy stuff in my relationships, And so I was manipulating situations in people. I was trying to control situations in people. I got really heavily into my codependency in certain relationships with certain people. Again, predominantly romantic, but this also extended to friendships and to work relationships. So I had all this stuff going on below the surface, which again, it was this core belief, this idea that I have about myself, who I think I am in the world, and who I think I am in the world, if who I think I am is unlovable, and I believe that that's just the truth about me, that's just the way it is, it's going to be very hard to have a truly intimate, loving, trusting relationship with another person. Again, whether romantic or friendship or, whatever, family. So that's what I was up against. And it just created all kinds of craziness in my life. Not to mention a lot of acting out, a lot of trying to medicate those feelings. When I was younger, I looked like I had it going on, but if I went out, if I didn't drink or do something to medicate, to mood alter, it was very hard for me to cope. And very hard for me to be in a social situation. And I ran from commitments in relationships. I ran from, some cases, human decency in some of my love relationships. And it was all because I was just terrified, and I didn't even know it. My life was just getting crazier and crazier, and I had no idea why. And it was painful, and So for me, it's beginning to understand that if I want to make this transition from living a life based in fear to living a life based in love, looking at the wrong camera, I have to begin to look at my fear of love. And so, as I said earlier, this involves things like, giving our heart to someone. Now, if I don't trust myself and if I don't trust other people, it's very difficult to be intimate, to be yourself, to give yourself to somebody else, and to be in a relationship where honesty and intimacy and commitment are at play. That's the goal. So I could just tell you, again, I said it all a minute ago, but it was this fear of rejection, this fear that I was going to get more, they were going to leave or not like me, or, I was going to disappoint them. Big thing for me is this fear of disappointing other people. I've done this with bosses, I've done this with friends, and I've done this in my intimate relationships. Fear of disappointing somebody, fear of being rejected, fear of being criticized, fear of not being good enough to love. And that's really what it is. When we say I'm not good enough, the second half of that sentence is, I'm afraid I'm not good enough to be loved for who I am. I'm not good enough to be loved the way I am. Again, when they find out who I really am, they're not going to want to stick around. They're not going to like me. If you really knew who I was, you wouldn't want to get involved with me. This is the depth of my self-loathing, my self-hatred, my low self-esteem. And I'm covering it up. Like, nobody has a clue about this, including me. I'm covering it up with, nice business suits and fancy sports cars and, gold Amex cards. And, I lived in Beverly Hills for 17 years, and I thought I was hot stuff. And it was all to cover up this feeling of inferiority, this feeling of not good enough, this feeling that I'm unlovable. I had to have all this other stuff going on to distract people and myself. And so deep down inside, I was just afraid of what it would mean to really allow somebody to get to know me, to, perhaps risk not being perfect, to risk making a mistake, to risk, not doing the right thing in a certain situation. So the next slide. So, now, what I got was that I lived in fear. See, I did one of two things. I either, all right. So I lived in fear of somebody rejecting me. And I can see now that that fear was based in the fact that I was already rejecting myself. So this is in the reading, in the audiobook tonight. If a relationship ends, it's natural to feel some sense, especially if it feels like it was a special relationship, it's natural to feel a sense of sadness or grief. that accompanies any loss, and a loss of a relationship. So that's natural, that's normal. But what followed for me when a relationship ended, especially if they broke up with me, so it's interesting. I either broke up with them because this was my way of short-circuiting. Instead of them rejecting me first, I rejected them. This is my insanity. I didn't know that that's why I was doing it, but this was my attempt to short-circuit. So instead of them waiting for them to reject me, I rejected them. And then I would feel guilty. I would feel ashamed. I would feel bad. I would feel like, I was a bad person because I broke up with somebody. They were usually very nice people I was involved with. And so I would feel guilty when I broke up with them. Or if they broke up with me, then I would feel self-pity, I would feel depression, I would feel anger, vengeance, thinking of all the ways I could get back at them, resentment. Which, by the way, resentment is, according to P. Melody, who writes a lot about codependency, she says resentment is victim anger. And I got a lot to say about resentment in chapter 6, so stay tuned for that. So my point is, my feelings went far beyond what you might consider normal feelings at the loss of a relationship. And so what I am going to suggest to you guys, and this is, again, take what you like and leave the rest. If this applies to you, great. If it doesn't, that's fine too. But if I'm having that extreme reaction, all right, it's not their rejection of me that was the problem. Yes, I may feel sad, I may feel grief, but if I'm pissed or if I'm filled with self-pity and self-hatred, that's because of my rejection of myself. And we're going to talk a lot about this again. I don't know if it's in this chapter or the next chapter, but we often have an investment in being seen in a certain way, and when that doesn't happen, what I can do is I project my own feelings of self-loathing, my own feelings of unworthiness onto another person and say, "You're doing this to me. You're making me feel this way because you rejected me. I'm such a good person. I do so much for you. I did so much for you, and you left me for somebody else," or whatever it was. So the problem in that situation, if I feel really bad, as I keep saying over and over again, is not that they've rejected me, because if I feel really good about myself, if I love who I am, all right, if I'm okay with who I am, if I see myself as lovable, valuable, and worthy, then you know what? I may not be thrilled that the relationship is over, but I'm not going to be devastated. I'm not going to be, my attitude might really be, gosh, you don't know what you're missing. I'm a catch, So again, it has nothing, this is the whole point of the whole book so far. Whatever I'm thinking, feeling, saying, and doing really has nothing to do with the other person. It's always and only how I see myself, and how I see myself determines how I feel about myself, and how I feel about myself determines what I do in the world, what I say, what actions I take or don't take, how I react to situations and other people. So in a way, this is kind of good news because I'm actually in charge, I'm actually in control. I'm not in control, obviously, if I'm having these extreme feelings, but I do get to choose. And my point is, again, you guys may already have figured this out, but this was kind of new for me to realize that, I'm always choosing how I feel. Nobody makes me feel anything. Again, I may not like what they're doing, and we're not, I keep saying this, I've been saying it, I'm going to keep saying it, we're not making excuses for somebody else's unloving behavior, we're not making excuses for somebody else's inappropriate behavior, but none of that changes the fact that I get to decide how I feel. I get to decide what I think, how I feel, what I say, and what I do in every situation in my life, including somebody breaking up with me by text message or leaving me for another person or whatever they do. All right? It doesn't make what they do right, but it's about me taking my power back. Because if I give when I give my power away to another person or a situation like that, typically what I would do is I would decide how I felt about myself based on how I thought they felt about me. And so if I thought somebody liked me, I would feel good about myself. And if I thought they didn't like me anymore, I would feel bad about myself. Now, I'm going to say this with a lot of compassion and empathy for myself, but that's the thinking of a 6-year-old. That's not how an adult approaches life. Now, it's the best I could do at the time, and there were gifts in that experience. Looking back now, I can see the gifts. They all ended up in this book, actually. So the point is, if I'm deciding how I feel about myself based on what I think, this really important word, what I think somebody else thinks about me, I'm screwed. My chances of happiness, of joy, because every time I think that they change how they feel about me, then my mood has to follow, my emotional state, my reactions, my disposition has to follow that. And I become like a billiard ball, bouncing all over the place based on what I think they think about me. It's insanity. And yet that's how I live most of my life, at least in my romantic relationships. So I'm going to have a lot more to say about this over the next 2 weeks. It actually gets worse. All right, so if this is triggering you in any way, you may want to skip next week. I'm only kidding. But, this stuff goes really deep. And again, the reason I'm bringing it up here in this chapter on fear is, short of things like, illness or, some kind of catastrophe or disaster in a person's life, our love relationships, our romantic relationships. I mean, look at the divorce rate in this country. There's so much craziness and there's so much pain and there's so much misery, and there's also great stuff. There are people who it is love at first sight and they spend 60 years together and they have a beautiful life and they're compassionate and they're giving. So I get that. I believe that is possible. And I believe there are people who have that. So I'm not trying to, crap on romantic relationships, at least not yet. Next week, we'll see. But my point is I want to help the healing. I want to help people begin to see this differently, to see themselves differently. And so when a relationship ends, it doesn't have to be 6 weeks in bed because we're depressed, or it doesn't have to be calling the divorce lawyer and say, I want to take them for everything they got. I'm not going to say anything more about divorce lawyers. So let's look at the last slide here. So again, I've been saying this since week 1 of the workshop back in July. No one makes us feel anything. And it's my belief that if this is true anywhere, it must be true everywhere, including our intimate relationships. And again, this goes for family relationships, it goes for love relationships, romantic relationships. Heck, it could even go with how we interact with our boss, our coworkers, our employees. This is about taking our power back. As long as I'm convinced that what somebody else is doing, saying or doing is the cause of how I feel, I am powerless to change that situation. I am powerless to have a different experience in that situation. Because I'm saying I'm not responsible for how I feel, you're responsible for how I feel, and you need to change so I can feel differently. Now, if you've been around for a while, I think most of us, we're well into our. Some of us are in our middle age, middle age, and in the Middle Ages. That's crazy. Waiting for somebody else to change so we can feel better. Good luck with that. And again, it's not to say that other people are not accountable for their inappropriate behavior. We can still hold other people accountable. We're not making excuses. And loving another person, I'm going to talk a lot about this later, loving another person doesn't mean we stop loving ourselves. So it doesn't mean I become a doormat for somebody else's inappropriate behavior. We're going to talk a lot about boundaries, healthy boundaries in our relationships. That's the primary way we take care of ourselves in our relationships. So if you're looking to get involved with somebody and you don't know how to have healthy boundaries, good luck, or at least from my perspective. I'll speak for myself. So I spent a lot of time working on that, practicing taking care of myself by having healthy boundaries. And then guess what? I don't give my power away so often. It takes a lot more to rattle my cage these days than it used to. And I have a lot less fear of intimacy in relationships. I have a lot less trepidation about meeting new people. I mean, it was hard for me to go to a party or a social event without drinking or drugs or something just to cope with this feeling that I'm not good enough, that I don't have what it takes, that, people are not going to like me once they get to know me, and I'm going to be rejected, and it's going to feel horrible. I don't have that anymore. I'm like a different person. And the only thing that changed, and I keep saying this, is how I see myself, is who I think I am. I questioned all those negative thoughts and beliefs that I had about myself and said, is that really true? Where does that come from? And I could see it was coming from the mind of a 6-year-old based on some, in some cases, repeated interactions with adults in my life where I didn't understand what was going on. They had a part in it too. They probably could have handled certain things better. But this is not about blaming them or anybody else. But it is understanding that I shape my self-image, my concept of myself, who I think I am, how I see myself based on those experiences, and none of that was true. It was all the mind of a 6-year-old. And I built a life around that. I never questioned it. And then what happens? See, this is why it gets confusing. Then what happens is the experiences follow the beliefs and reinforce those beliefs. So I would have a negative experience and it would reinforce the idea that I'm not good enough or I'm not lovable or I don't have what it takes. So it became this self-perpetuating, vicious circle, vicious cycle that fed on itself. And I had to stop that train. And for me, it takes a lot of conscious effort. It's taken a lot of work to begin to reprogram that. And it starts by being aware in the moment. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I saying? What am I doing? If there's negative thoughts and beliefs involved, is that really true? Is that true about me? But also, is it true about the other people? Because here's the thing, for me to see myself as a victim, I have to see everybody else as victimizers. So I have an idea about them that stems from my idea about myself, and that's just as toxic, that's just as problematic. So is that really true about me? Is that really true about the other person? Can I see myself differently? Is there something I'm not taking responsibility for here? Am I blaming somebody else for my feelings? Have I taken the time in advance to set an advance intention? I talk about this in chapter 2. Before we have a difficult or challenging situation, we can be prepared. We can pick up the phone and call somebody and say, look, I got this meeting with this client at 5 o'clock. He pushes my buttons. I need some help. And you kind of walk through it. You can role play. I've done this a million times for myself and with other people. You be the client, I be me, and we go through the role playing. So when I get on the phone later that day or when I meet with that person, I'm prepared. I'm present. I'm conscious. I'm in the moment. I'm not distracted. So the result is I have a whole different experience of myself and the other person. So there's a lot that we can do. And we're not a victim of our emotions. We're not a victim of our childhoods. We're not a victim of our thinking and belief patterns. We're not even, as we're going to find out in chapter 5, we're not even the victims of the hardwiring physiology in our brains and body. I have a very concrete example of changing what you might consider the natural expression of my physiology in my body. I have a concrete example of changing that. When I thought, this has got to be the last thing on earth I could change about myself. I'm not going to talk about it now. If you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. We'll get to that in chapter 5. So let's stop here because my head is spinning, and I'm not sure how you guys feel about all this. But I just, again, if no one makes us feel anything, now there's a flip side to this, which we're going to talk about next week. So if no one makes us feel anything, then we get to choose how we feel in every situation, and we're already doing that, we just don't know it, which means if I feel good in a relationship with somebody, I'm doing that. They're not doing that. See, they're not responsible for me feeling bad, but they're also not responsible for me feeling good, which actually turns out to be kind of good news because now I can make myself feel good irrespective of what they're doing and not doing, irrespective of what they think about me or don't think about me. That's true power. That's when you change your life. You know, when I take responsibility in the moment for my happiness, for my emotional well-being, when they're being a shithead or whatever they're being, and I'm not reacting, I'm in my power. And now I'm going to start creating my life, and I'm going to change my life dramatically as a result of that. All right, so if you're new here, what we're going to do now, we're going to take a 5-minute break. I'm going to play a song. Now, I played this song at the beginning. I'm going to play this song now at the break, and I'm going to play it again at the end. And this song is a beautiful song by a guy named Robbie Williams. Actually, somebody else wrote it, but he recorded it. It's available on iTunes and Amazon Music and all of that, and it's called Love My Life. During the break, I'm going to put the lyrics on screen, and they're very positive, life-affirming, self-affirming lyrics. I use them as affirmation, so I'm going to invite you guys to do the same. And we'll take a 5-minute break, we'll come back, and then we're going to get into the assignment for tonight, as well as have some Q&A. So I'm going to play this song. Oh, actually, let me preview. This is the assignment for tonight. As I change how I see myself, I change how I see the world. You agree or disagree? Why? All right, so hopefully if you saw that assignment earlier, but this is it. We're going to talk about this when we get back. And we'll open it up, as I said, for Q&A or discussion on that. So now I'm going to play our song, and we'll come back in 5 minutes. All right, we are back. So let's go back to the assignment. Oh, by the way, did I mention we have refrigerator magnets? All right, so as I change how I see myself, I change how I see the world. Agree or disagree? And why? Now, again, I've been talking about this from day one. You know, as I see myself, I see the world. And when I begin to, we talked about this, I think it was last week, you know, as I see myself as being able to take care of myself, the affirmation we had last week was, I'm able to take care of myself in all situations and with all people. I really believe that I can take care of myself in all situations and with all people. Guess what? My fear is going to go way down. Yes, there may be some challenges. You know, I may have some challenges in my life. There may be some things I need to overcome. But it's the situation, you guys must be sick of me saying this, the situation is never the problem. The problem is always and only how I see myself in that situation. And I can always change how I see myself. Simple, but not easy, okay? Because a lot of us, especially me, I have a lot of baggage. I bring a history, a lifetime of seeing myself in a certain way. So we have to begin to undo that. And it's a slow chipping away. At least it's been for me. It's just that slow moment by moment, sometimes minute by minute, questioning those negative thoughts. First of all, just listening for them, being aware of them, and then questioning them and beginning to replace the old thoughts with new thoughts. All right. So, and I got to tell you guys, I see the world in an entirely different way today. I see my relationships. I see the political situation. I see the economic situation. I see, everything is different for me now. And the only thing that's changed is how I see myself. All right. So now I want to hear from you guys. So who wants to kick us off here? And if you want to talk about the romantic, fear in intimate relationships, you can do that as well. Whatever moves you.
I'll say something, Peter. Hi, everybody. I had a hard time getting on tonight for some reason, so sorry I was late. I'm just thinking of there's no question that I agree with that statement. That I first have to see myself, or however I'm seeing myself is then kind of the lenses that my glasses see the world through. And I've really seen some changes in myself lately. I mean, incredible changes. And I've talked about that in your program, of walking through fear, of doing something new, a new business, and actually starting to feel comfortable and confident. And it's all because I'm seeing myself differently, that I can do this, that I have the skill, I have the knowledge, and I'm passionate and compassionate. And all those things are helping me. And an example was a couple of days ago, someone contacted me about performing an assessment. And I was like, before I would be like, and I can't do this type of thing. And I had to laugh because, first of all, I didn't react that way. And I saw at the bottom of the letter that this person happens to be, I'm in the food addiction world, sugar addiction world, and happens to be a physician who specializes in bariatrics, which is obesity. And I didn't freak out. I absolutely did not freak out. I actually met with the woman today. I had received her information, and I knew what she was, or that she has the same disease I have, by looking at that, because I know enough now. And I did this assessment today, and it was really wonderful. I mean, I felt like I was in the right place, and that's a miracle, So how I see myself definitely changes my lenses of how I see the world. I mean, that's just a huge example of, something that just happened today. And you're asking this question, I had to laugh, because I didn't look at the assignment. So that's what I have to say. So.
All right. Well, I only have one thing to say, Judy. Woohoo! That's great. Good for you. I just want to give you a little feedback. You look different. I mean, you look like a different person tonight. So
Oh, well,
whatever
thank you.
You look great. Whatever you're doing, it's working.
Thank you.
Who else? Didi, did you want to say something? Was that you?
Sure, I'll sign. I'll check in. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, everybody. Sorry I was late. So I look forward to watching the replay. The replays are so helpful for me, and going back and re-listening and re-listening and re-listening. It's such good medicine. So thanks, Peter. I don't think I'll touch on this particular romantic relationship issue. What I want to share is I wish I why I was late is the computer guy came and we did our transaction, and a couple hours, maybe 3 hours before, I became very upset because of the uh, I didn't. I felt like I was being. I felt like my transparency and vulnerability was not being respected, and that I was being spun and up leveraged and all different kinds of things. And I, instead of receiving my computer and the gentleman with my fierceness, my disappointment, my anger, and my desire to attack him personally because I was so mad and afraid for my own safety and welfare regarding, that's my computer. Everything's on there. I took Peter's advice about, going from fear to love to the best of my ability so far that we've, come so far in this training. And just really said the 3 or 4 different things that I thought were misunderstandings. And he, negotiated down his rate. He, uh, he in turn attempted to the very best of his ability to retain me as a customer. And what I wish that I had done is had the opportunity or chance to talk, to do the practice session in advance, because I believe there are still some things that I could have. Well, basically, I didn't get my computer returned to me in a usable way, and again, he, the spin is, we got to help you further so that you can get up and running, and that's the spin that's not okay with me. So I don't know if I'll go back to him with my concern or not, but the difference is I didn't let my fear, or I'll say it this way, how I think of myself more now than before I started this program, this workshop, is that I do love myself and I can take care of myself. And those two things, as I incorporate them with all of my interactions, whether it's romantic or otherwise, those are the things that are going to keep me from losing it in communication, which has been, I think, a real, it's been to my disadvantage up until now. And anyway, thanks for letting me share. I'm so glad to be here with you all, Pat.
All right. Nice, Dee Dee. Good job. So I can take care of myself in all situations and with all people. Doesn't mean there's not going to be challenges. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it perfectly, because there's the second half of the equation, which is, I can forgive myself if I don't take care of myself in all situations and with all people. And the more I forgive myself when I can't or don't take care of myself, the more I trust myself. And the more I trust myself, the better choices and decisions I make, the more I attract trustworthy people into my life. So that's beautiful, Dee Dee. I love it. That was, that's perfect, because you stopped the train, said, I have a choice here. I can stand up for myself without being. Here's the other thing. I'll give you a preview of chapter 6. Anger is an expression of fear. Fear always precedes anger. So I know now that when I'm angry, I'm really afraid. Now that has huge ramifications when it comes to working things out with another person. Because if I go to them and I'm angry, chances are I'm going to blame them for how I feel. But if I go to them and I know I'm afraid, I can actually, if it's appropriate, I can actually share with them, I'm actually feeling concerned here, or I'm worried about this. I can express fear and ask them to help me resolve my fear, as opposed to blaming them for feeling angry. Do you think that's going to change my life? Do you think that's going to change my relationships with other people? Whether it's the computer guy or my mother, if I approach it from that place, not that I'm angry and I'm blaming you for how I feel, but I'm concerned, I'm worried, I'm afraid, I need your help to work through this, changes everything. So excellent work, Dee Dee. That's great. You did a great job. And you have an opportunity to continue. I love the word too, negotiate. This is what adults do. Adults negotiate. All right? 6-year-olds blame and yell and throw things, and have a tantrum or whatever they're going to do. But adults, they negotiate. This works for me. How do you feel about that? Or what can we change here? How can we adjust this? And that's the basis of healthy relationships, negotiation, as opposed to feeling victimized, blaming, scapegoating, all the stuff that I usually do. Great. Thank you, Dee Dee. Who else? Talk about, as I change how I see myself, I change how I see the world. Talk about how you handle your romantic life, your love relationships. It's that feeling of insecurity. And that's what we're going to talk about next week, the insecurity that I often feel, and I see it in other people. And that insecurity is rooted in our idea about ourselves. The minute I see myself differently, I'm no longer insecure in my relationships. And if I'm not insecure in my relationships, then I can have true intimacy. Again, whether it's a romantic relationship or a relationship with a client or an employee or a contractor, when I handle the insecurity, which is about me, it's not about them or the situation, then I can have a whole different experience of the situation and the other person. And my insecurity is always based in who I think I am, how I see myself.
Hi, Peter. It's Barbara.
Hello, Barbara.
Hi. Still struggling with that one issue at work, but it's tough. I've had these situations before, and I guess this week, I don't know where it came from, out of the blue. She wanted to delegate some of the responsibility to somebody else because she's overwhelmed and I can't do it. And it was like, I am so sick and tired of this nonsense. But I was bigger than I had been, and I stepped up and I said, no. I said, no, you're not going to give it. She wanted to give it to somebody at night. And, the boss was there. And I said, no, I can do it. I don't understand. I said, it's not going to work out. No, you're not going to give the responsibility to somebody else. I have it. And that's how it was left. So that's a woo-woo. But I'm still down at these things. I know that's another part of it or something you talked about, but I'm very down about this.
All right.
It's
Well, let's
working.
start with what you did well.
Yes.
So, what did you do well in that situation?
Right. I thought more of myself. I was very calm. I had, like you said, I had none of those insecure feelings, none of that. I just said to her, no, I don't, I didn't get into her psyche. I didn't get into her stuff. I just said, no, you're not going to give it to the person at night. I'm taking it. And actually the boss, priest, he agreed. So I know it's her, whatever it is, it's out there and there's not much you can do about it. You can only do, what you can for yourself. And I did it.
Great.
Just feel, I just feel.
Was that standing up for yourself? What do you call that?
Yeah. Is it standing up for yourself? Is it thinking that you're bigger than what you thought you were? I don't know. Am I putting it right? Something about being bigger than you thought you were. Something like that. No, I'm laughing about it now. It wasn't funny then. It wasn't funny, for the last few days, but it's funny right now. So I appreciate the laugh.
Well, good. And there are things in life that we may not know how to do, but we can learn. We can ask for help. We can do, there are things we can do to mitigate the fact it's not the fact that I don't know something, but it's the fact that I was afraid to ask for help. I was afraid to admit that I didn't know something. And I've actually had the experience with clients where I've said to them, look, I've never done this before, so I don't have any experience with it. I think I can figure it out. and I'm willing to cut my rate on this, or I'm willing to give you extra this or whatever to make up for that. And thinking that they were just going to say, I'm going to find somebody else. And they're like, okay, go for it. So it's like believing in myself, believing that I can, and it may come down that I have to say to somebody, look, you know what, I really can't do this. So, I'm going to mitigate the whatever, and I'll help you transition it to somebody else. It's okay to say that as well. But the point is, I'm a lot more capable than I think I am. I have a lot more to offer than I give myself credit for. And it's just the belief that I can learn new things. You can teach an old dog new tricks. It is possible for me to grow and learn and do things that I never thought I was capable of before. One of the exercises that I'm adding in the second edition in chapter 1 is to give people an opportunity to go back to a time when they surprised themselves by doing something they didn't think they could do. And that's a really valuable thing. If you can remember a time when you surprised yourself by doing something you didn't think you could do, and you carry that into different new situations, it's like, wow, so maybe I can, maybe I am more capable than I give myself credit for. Maybe I can overcome this thing that I have with computers, whatever it might be. And it all comes from me changing how I see myself. And again, it may be appropriate to say to somebody, look, I'm not sure I can do this. Do you, especially if somebody's paying me, I want to be upfront with them and say, look, I'm not really sure I can do this. I want to let you know so you can decide. I give you all the information. And if you want somebody else, I've actually found other people to do things when I knew I couldn't do it for a client or something like that. So it's not one size fits all. But I love the fact that you're being bigger than you think you are by saying, you know what, I'm going to handle this. I don't know how I'm going to handle this, but I know I'm going to handle this.
Yes, exactly.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's kicking ass. I mean, that's like, I got this.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to do it.
Right. And without all the baggage. I mean, I just felt very confident. Without all the negative baggage. Yeah.
Now, we're going to talk about confidence. I think I alluded to this earlier. We're going to talk about confidence. The definition of confidence that I like has to do with a trusting relationship with ourselves. So I can be confident when I know I'm not going to beat the crap out of myself if I do something wrong, if I make a mistake, if I screw something up. See, when I bring self-love, self-forgiveness to my shortcomings, to my mistakes and all of that, I'm much more likely to try to do something that I didn't think I could do. I'm much more likely to take that risk of saying, you know what, I'm going to give it a try. If I'm beating the crap out of myself every time I do something wrong, if I'm constantly telling myself I'm a screw up, or I'm going to mess this up, or I don't know how to do it, I'm not going to take on the challenges that life presents me. And I have to say, one of the benefits for me in particular is that when I've said yes to things, I've learned to say yes to things that I used to say no to. And when I do that, I learn a new skill, I bring a new tool into my toolkit, and I can charge more money for what I do for my clients and stuff like that. By saying yes to a challenging situation, now I'm getting experience, and that makes me more marketable. It makes me more valuable. There's more things that I can do for a prospective client. So again, but I want to be mindful, I don't want to put the client in a difficult position where if I do screw it up, then they're going to be, it's going to have a real negative impact on them. But my experience is people are a lot more trusting of me than I often am of myself. So I like the definition of confidence. Way back in the day, I looked up, one day I kind of realized, gee, I'm lacking in self-confidence. So I went to the dictionary and I looked up the definition of the word confidence. And there was, the regular definitions that you would see, like assertive, or belief in oneself, or I don't remember exactly what they were. But as I went down the list, I think it was in number 5, there was a definition of a confidence as a trusting relationship. as in when you confide in somebody. And so I took that and I said, well, gee, so if confidence is a trusting relationship, then self-confidence must be a trusting relationship with myself. Now, what do I need to trust myself to do? Well, I need to trust myself to not beat the crap out of myself if I make a mistake or if I screw something up, because if I'm beating the crap out of myself every time I make a mistake, I'm not going to want to try anything new. I'm not going to want to take any risks. I'm not going to do anything that's going to put me in the possibility of making a mistake or screwing something up. So my life is going to stay very small and safe. So when I can trust myself to be nice to myself, if I do make a mistake, the whole world opens up. There's so many more possibilities now. And again, I'm better able to be of service to my clients, especially if I'm not worried, if I'm worried about making a mistake, I'm not really focused on what I'm doing. I'm going to do a half-assed job, all the negative stuff that goes along with that. So not only am I being nicer to myself, but I'm providing a better service to a client, or in a family relationship or whatever, I'm able to really show up and to be of service. Because I know that if I make a mistake, I'm not going to beat the crap out of myself anymore. I'm going to find a way to forgive myself. And if I have to make an amends, if I have to make things right with another person, I know how to do that. I'm not afraid of doing that anymore. I used to be terrified of admitting when I did something wrong because I thought it was just more proof, it was just more evidence that I was a bad person. Because that's how I saw myself. That's who I thought I was. So it was like, oh no, this is going to be, I can never admit when I've made a mistake because this is just more evidence that I'm a screw up. So I have to find a way to lie or manipulate or cheat or whatever I have to do to cover that up. One of the first experiences I had with this was when I got into, one of the things, the beautiful things about a 12-step recovery program is in steps 8 and 9, we talk about making an amends. The amends process, apologizing or making an amends to somebody for our part in the situation, if we've done something that's been harmful to another person. And I was still a lawyer at the time, and I had a client, they were my biggest client, and I screwed something up. And my initial reaction was, oh, I got to cover this up. I can't tell them, they're going to fire me, and then what am I going to do? And I was like, no, well, I can't do that anymore. I know that doesn't really work. And I'm working a 12-step program, and they say, we have to make an amends to those we have harmed and take responsibility. We have to continue to take our moral inventory of ourselves. So I thought about it, and I said, okay, let me find out what we have to do to make this right, to fix this problem. So I did that. And then I just called up the client, and I called the CEO of the company, who was the guy I was dealing with at the time. And I just said, look, I dropped the ball. I made a mistake. This is what I did. This is what I should have done. And this is what we need to do to straighten this out. And there was a moment of silence on the other side of the phone. And I thought, this is it. He's going to fire me. And he just said, okay, no problem. Handle it. I trust you. And that was such a life-changing moment for me, because it was like, oh my God, I admitted that I had done something wrong and it turned out okay. In fact, the guy says he trusts me. So that's what happens when I begin to take responsibility for my part in things, when I am willing to admit when I'm wrong. Again, if I'm going to beat the crap out of myself every time I make a mistake or screw something up, I'm never going to want to admit I'm wrong.
When I heard you, I think the first time I heard you say it was a couple of weeks ago, you said, if I'm a victim, then that means all these other people were victimizers. That, when I started meditating on that, that really brought a lot of forgiveness and some space, because then I had to go through, like, my relationship with my mom. Was she a victimizer, or was she a defective person? Because, I have had a crime done to me, walking down the street type crime, when it was just done, and that was victimized. But it made me go through my relationships that were difficult, and say, gosh, were they really victimizers? And it softened it a bit. There were problems, but it did soften it a lot. And I felt kind of forgiveness, a lot more forgiveness. So that was another aha. Thank you.
Awesome. That's great. We're going to talk a lot about forgiveness. That'll be around March, though, I think, at this rate. Now, again, we're not making excuses for other people's bad behavior. Other people do shitty things, Other people do fucked up things, And I've done fucked up things to people in my relationships. So we're not making excuses for that, This is not about condoning somebody else's bad behavior. This is not being off in fairyland about, oh, everybody's so wonderful and all that. But I don't have to see myself as a victim to take care of myself. I don't have to see myself as a victim to hold other people accountable. Because every time I see myself as a victim, I'm giving my power away. And every time I give my power away, I diminish my ability to create my life. So we want to find a way, which we're going to get to, where we can take care of ourselves without having to be a victim. Where we can hold other people accountable without having to go to that place of self-pity or blaming or pointing fingers or all that other stuff. And also, there is room for compassion. We are, I think it was Louise Hay in her book, You Can Heal Your Life. She says, we're all victims of victims. And as I looked at my own past, and other people, most people have as difficult a time as we have, just being compassionate or being, doing the right thing or whatever, So again, we're not making excuses, and we can understand, we can have more compassion for other people. See, the more compassion and understanding I have for my own shortcomings, the more compassion and understanding I can have for other people's shortcomings. And I can begin to see them in a different way. Don't have to condone their bad behavior. I don't have to enable them. I don't have to, participate in their insanity. But I also don't have to make them victimizers. I don't have to make them wrong. We talk a lot about making other people wrong, chapter 6. So it's great. Thank you, Kim. That's beautiful. I'm glad you shared that. Thank you. Maybe a couple more minutes. Anybody else want to say anything about anything?
I'll add something.
Go ahead, Didi.
Thanks. So I just want to say thank you for you being willing to be so vulnerable to share these really important, things that you've experienced to get the book written and to be who you are today. Because how are we ever going to heal and grow and become better, bigger people if we don't have people saying, what their mistakes were and how they improved their life through this healing process of changing how they see themselves and interacting with life in different ways. So I'm just so grateful, and I don't know, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. All right, last call. Anybody else? All right, so I'm going to play the song again, and it's 3.5 minutes, so it's just going to play 3.5 minutes. The lyrics are on screen. Sing along with your microphone muted. Sing along, and we'll come back for our final goodbyes. All right, we got t-shirts, hats. Hopefully you can hear me. Color pencils, refrigerator magnets, books. Do all your holiday shopping at bebiggertoday.com. All right, thank you guys. So that wraps it up for tonight. Anybody want to say anything else before we go?
Thank you.
You.
I just want to say, woohoo! Go you!
Woohoo!
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Good night.
All right, good night, guys. Have a great week, and remember, be bigger than you think you are today and every day. I want to hear those victories next week.